Of SEC teams with South Carolina. Chris Clark from Gamecock Central, so nice enough to join us. And he's going to talk a little bit about Gamecocks football. Exactly what is Shane Beamer's version of Beamer Ball?
Well, that's a good question. I think to some degree we're going to find out stylistically, right? Like what this team's kind of identity is going to be. And I do think when people think about Beamer Ball with Frank Beamer and Virginia Tech, typically are going to think about special teams and blocking kicks and things like that. And he'll place a heavy emphasis on it. I mean, Shane Beamer has coached on offense and defense as an assistant, and he's obviously coordinated special teams, and then he's got the background with his father. But he brought in a dedicated special teams coach, Pete Limbo, who's former head coach at Ball State, Elon, and is a pretty highly regarded special teams coach. And Shane Beamer, and sort of building out his staff, decided, hey, if I can get Pete Limbo, I think that highly of him. I want a dedicated special teams coach. That's the only Pete Limbo doesn't coach a position. He's the special teams coach, standalone. So there will be an emphasis on that. Very technical with that, But then you think about offensively, what the team wants to be. Nobody's seen a Marcus Satterfield offense in a while, and he has experience in several different offenses in terms of style. We know that Shane Beamer wants to loop in some stuff from Oklahoma, for instance, in what they do. And it's going to be sort of a very pro style, very versatile, I guess you could say, offense as far as what they want to do. But they didn't put a lot on tape during the spring game for people to see, and so I think they're going to still build that out. Lean heavily this year, at least on their running backs and their tight ends, which are the better units on that offense. Defensively, they'll run a 4-2-5 with Clayton White. Be pretty aggressive on third downs, things of that nature. And so I think that's kind of what you can expect stylistically in a nutshell. But there's still some things still some things to see in year one as far as how it's going to look.
Well, looking at the quarterback position, what are we looking like behind center this year in Columbia?
Yeah, so Luke Doty is the guy who took over towards the middle end of last season for South Carolina as a true freshman, and he's the incumbent starter. He's took the first snaps to begin spring, exiting spring. He was the top guy there as well. So he's a sophomore. He still has limited experience because he only played and started in a few games last year. But he's a guy that has talent. He's got tremendous leadership traits. I mean, he's one of those guys that people kind of gravitate towards. He's just naturally got those characteristics. But obviously, it takes more than that, and it takes more than just talent. But he has a good blend of both. It's continuing to bring him along as a passer, really focusing on that. Luke Doty's a true dual threat guy. He's got legitimate speed. He could play wide receiver or another position at the college level and athletically be able to hold up. So it's just about continuing to have him gain experience and continue to progress as a passer. For him, I think the unfortunate part is South Carolina still needs a lot of help at the receiver position. That's an area they got to get better in. But Luke Doty will be able to bring that second element to this team and being able to run the football and make some plays with his legs if all else fails.
So are we looking? I guess if you look at this offense and the fact that they switched systems so drastically last year,
Yeah.
are we looking at more of a power run spread, like a power spread, old school Tim Tebow looking offense?
I think here's the thing from what we've heard, this playbook Marcus Satterfield has brought to South Carolina is very extensive. Now, they'll have to pare it down, obviously, and they put a lot on the players, the quarterbacks, even early. Guys with, true freshman Colton Gauthier, you know, who's the number two guy right now, a transfer in Jason Brown at quarterback, Luke Doty, who's still relatively inexperienced. They put a ton on those guys. And will they pare it down? Yeah, as they continue to figure out what this team does well. But there's a lot of different things. When you're talking about being able to, yeah, do they have some power run elements? They do. They've got a lot of pro style things that if you turn on some different teams in the NFL, you may see a concept come from this team or that team, but they've also got some spread Oklahoma type stuff. Um, Oklahoma's offense is sometimes misunderstood because people think of Oklahoma and they think of chucking the ball all around. They run the ball a lot at Oklahoma. And so I think there's going to be a lot of those different elements. It's going to be, I think, pretty versatile. They'll have to narrow it down, like I said, but there'll be some versatility to it. There's still some questions as to what it'll look like, but I think there's going to be, like I said, an emphasis on running backs, an emphasis on tight ends, getting those guys in some different spots because they have some interesting skill sets at the tight end position and a pretty good, running back room as well.
Yeah, I was just. Um, yeah, there he is. Um, just want to say, are you there, Chris?
Yep.
Okay. Um, I don't know if I get the name right. If I get it wrong, I apologize. It's not intentional. But Kevin Harris, the running back,
Yeah.
I watched him in Oxford go up and down the field all night. How do you think he is going to fit in with what they're doing offensively?
Yeah, I mean, there was that game, Stephen. There's a lot of going up and down the field by anybody who touched the ball on either team. It seemed like, but yeah, Kevin Harris. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere to a degree. Like everybody in Columbia knew he had a chance to be a pretty good player, but what he did last season, I don't know if anybody saw coming. He was probably going to be the backup going into the season to Marshawn Lloyd, who's a former 5-star recruit, was a freshman last year, but he tore his ACL unfortunately before the season. And so that pushed Kevin Harris up. Now, this may have happened anyway, but especially with Marshawn Lloyd out of the picture, super talented kid, Kevin Harris quickly became the number one guy, and he absolutely took it and ran with it. He showed more speed than people gave him credit for, power, had a great year, and now Marshawn Lloyd's going to be healthy. Zaquandre White has done a good job as well at running back, so they feel like they've got some depth and some talent at running back, and you'd have to think with the year that he had last season, Kevin's still going to be the first guy out there. Maybe he'll just get even more help this season. So he fits in well. I mean, this team's going to run the ball plenty, you would think. It's not a very good strategy, a wise strategy to come out and chuck the ball all over the place for this team. They're not built for that. And so I'd say he's going to be a huge part of their strategy offensively with however they get the ball in the running back's hands.
All right, let's look in the trenches. How does South Carolina look on the offensive and defensive line?
Yes, on the offensive line, they do return some solid players. They lose to Darius Hutcherson, who's a guy who was a senior for them and played quite well. But they also returned some young talent, some guys that have dipped their toes in the water in terms of experience, also some more experienced guys like Dylan Wanham at tackle. Defensive line, I think, is the strength of this team, maybe in total. You would look at maybe running back, defensive line, and probably the tight end position. Those are your best spots on this football team. It's not to say it's without question. I think at defensive tackle, they do need some guys to take a step forward, like Zach Pickens, who was a former 5-star as a junior. They need some guys to step forward, but they do have some good players, particularly at edge rusher. J.J. Enigbari led the league in sacks last season. He's back. Aaron Sterling's going to be one of these super seniors who came back for another season. He's got a lot of experience. Jordan Birch, a former 5-star guy who got some valuable experience last season and has continued to take a step forward. They've got some guys on that defensive line that can play. They got to get a little bit better and more consistent on the interior, but I think that's a unit that they're really going to lean on. And offensively, too, that's going to be an important group.
Now, the defensive coordinator that you have coming in
Yep.
is most of them are physical guys, but coming in after a guy like Boom. Is there a concern that there's a stylistic mismatch?
Well, there is a stylistic difference, that's for sure. Now, what that means for the product, everybody's going to have to see. And you also, I mean, any coordinator, you got to look at personnel. So with this team, we know they're going to be very thin in the secondary. That's just a reality. They're going to have to work through that. They've got some questions at linebacker. Like I said, they'll lean on the defensive line mostly, but there's going to be a stylistic difference. I mean, when you think about a guy playing a 4-2-5 base, teams have to play a lot of nickel nowadays anyway. But that is sort of Clayton White's base, the 4-2-5. They want to get teams to third down and be sort of creative in that sense, really get after the quarterback, mix up coverages. That's what they want to do. Now, how much will they have to adjust based on personnel this year? We'll see. But they are, they seem to be placing an emphasis this year on simplifying things, just allowing the guys to go out there and play fast as opposed to thinking. That's something that they talk about a lot with Clayton White and the rest of that staff.
All right, real quick before I let you go, give me a 30,000-foot view of South Carolina football this season.
Well, I mean, Stephen, it's gone poorly the last couple of years, particularly. I mean, you look at last season, the conference-only slate, they win 2 games. The year before that, they were at 4 wins, and so certainly there's a ways to go. And I don't think anybody's going to carry high expectations into this season. It's kind of a reset. Are there some pieces? Is there an ability to be competitive and maybe go win the games you should, maybe steal a game and have a pretty good year? If this team, I think, makes a bowl, that's a pretty good accomplishment, as kind of a reset year. They're going to have to recruit their way out of some roster gaps. They're going to have to develop some of the guys they have. There are some quality pieces, but when you play the schedule that they're going to play, that's not good enough. You have to. Every team that they're going to play has pieces, just about, and so it's about just trying to maximize that. It is a different vibe, a different feel around the program. But as Shane Beamer's pointed out, this spring and into this summer, they haven't faced adversity yet. They hadn't played a game, haven't lost a game, and so it's not a season where you project them from going, almost worst to first type thing by any means. I think expectations have to be tempered. They got to get recruiting going for the first time in a while, hosting, prospects on campus starting June 1. There's a ways to go, but there's more positivity around the program right now with the new staff. We'll see where things go from there.
Oh, and real quick before I let you go, I do have a question. With Dabo cooking down the road, how does that affect South Carolina right now, going through this rebuild?
Well, I mean, it makes things tougher on the fans. There's no doubt. I mean, you look at when Will Muschamp got the job in 2016, I mean, Clemson had really started cooking then. I mean, 2016, they won the national championship for the first time since 1981. Clemson did, and that aggravates everything, right? When
Mm.
South Carolina has their own struggles, you don't only look at that. That's frustrating enough for the fan base. Then they look to Clemson doing extremely well, and Georgia has, they recruit so well every single year, and your schedule's good. You even look at teams like, Kentucky. I mean, they've gotten markedly better under Mark Stoops, and that's a team that's caused them a lot of trouble lately, South Carolina. So now they're trying to rise up to the level. They're going to have to try to rise up to the level where they can, pass a Kentucky, pass a Missouri. Can they get there, and then try to go towards the top of the conference? And we'll see. But yeah, I mean, Clemson's rise definitely makes it tough. Those teams don't head-to-head recruit as much as people may think, at least right now. But it does aggravate and exacerbate sort of the pain level for South Carolina fans right now.
Yeah. Okay, Chris Clark, Gamecock Central, coming through to you. Anything you want to promote on your site?
No, just appreciate the pub, man. Appreciate the opportunity to come on. If you come check out GamecockCentral.com, have you covered all off season recruiting, football. If you want to, any Ole Miss fans ever want to check out what's going on in Columbia.
All right, Chris. Thank you very much, and have a good one.